SYLBOURNE Studio, and streaming on Facebook and streaming on YouTube. And for those on Instagram, which you're not going to be because I'm not on Instagram, but we may have an after session on Instagram. And Instagram people, you need to come on if you're watching this later. Yes, we're having a very interesting discussion today. I wasn't planning to come on tonight on this particular topic, but the Chancellor went ahead and made a summer economic statement, right? Chancellor Rishi Sunak has delivered his economic plan to help the UK economy recover from the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, many persons actually have been affected in some respect by this whole COVID, this geese, as they would say, that's coming and sneak on us. Nevertheless, still the government has done a wonderful job, I would say, based on the furlough scheme. But the question is, how long can that be maintained? So tonight, I have with myself Siobhan Aarons, a Global Customs Trade Counsel, Conservative Party member, and spare time political analyst. And we're going to sort of go through like an overview of some of the different policies and different steps regarding this new economic summer statement this year. Siobhan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic.
It's been an exciting day, I think.
Yes, yeah. I was actually at one point, I think my wife was listening at one point, and I heard about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, you can have lunch and dinner at half price government. I said, yes, we're all going dinner. And then the other person from the Labour Party came on and said something like, oh, and dampened it. And I said, oh, come on, man, let's all have dinner, man. But listen, tell us about this this whole scheme and this whole policy, a sort of overview of it.
Well, I mean, first of all, we've got to say wow to Rishi Sunak, the fact that he keeps opening the government's checkbook and keeps writing new checks, and he's done it again today. I mean, I know the Prime Minister in PMQs beforehand was talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. And then with this statement, the Chancellor has clearly shown that it is jobs, jobs, jobs that they are prioritising at this time, as we are in what he calls the second stage of the COVID recovery plan.
So therefore, we can safely say the government have lots of money.
Therefore, we can safely say the government is planning to spend or aid the spending of lots of money.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well, one of the things that I was looking at when I was listening to it today, and someone said to me, this doesn't look like a conservative government. It looks like a socialist government or so. And with the raft of handing out money or so, what would you say then about this sort of policy? Is it something of a socialist inspired, or is it a government initiative to get the country back going? Boom.
Yeah, I mean, these are unprecedented times.
Yes.
Very hard to say at this time of night. These are unprecedented times, and therefore it calls for unprecedented measures, irrespective of whether you are more fiscally conservative or less so. But I think what is very clear is that the way in which this government is looking at spending money, both, in the first phase when we went into lockdown, where pretty much everything stopped for a good two and a bit months, and now in the second stage where we're looking more at recovery and, re-energizing the economy, this is still being done in a way which is quite clearly a centre-right, one nation conservative government approach, as opposed to the socialists would do and just be like throw money at everything in a way which isn't actually, thought through and will bear fruit going forward.
And how do we break it down? Because they're like I can see like there are 6 different areas, but how do you break down this sort of wrap? Because yesterday or a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken, there was about £1 billion or so which was given to the arts to sort of keep them going, because some of them are actually saying they would have actually folded over if it wasn't for the injection of this cash again in the arts.
Yeah, so the arts, I think in terms of that was a very welcome announcement that was made by the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, and by Oliver Dowden, the Minister for DCMS. And that is part of the, I would still call the first stage, because reality is for much of the arts, nothing has happened for a while. Theatres have closed, you know, all live performances have been closed for, what is it now, 3 or so months?
Yes.
Like anything is likely to happen anytime soon. So that's what I would say is part of the Chancellor's first stage of support packages, which, you know, currently is at billion. Whether it's extra funding for vital public services, for supporting wages with job retention scheme, and also, you know, what's needed to keep a very important piece of British culture and British identity, and also what we sell global Britain alive, which is the arts. What we're talking about here, the announcement today, stage 2 of about 30 billion, is very much focused on creating jobs, supporting jobs, you know, and really providing a confidence across the country at this time.
Okay, so if we have to break down then, if we have to break down some of these, and as I said, what I want to do is to sort of give an overview. And what it said is that includes plan to protect jobs, help younger workers, encourage spending with measures such as VAT cut for leisure activities, and restaurant voucher scheme, which we'll come to at the end. The first one is like looking at job retention bonus to encourage firms to retain furloughed staff. Because as you were saying, is that if we don't stop the furlough, how long can we keep it? If we stop it in September, it's going to get criticized and say, why not keep it longer? If you do it in November, criticize. There's got to be a point where they stop. So this job retention bonus of this £1,000 payment, explain on that and see if we can elaborate on that for people and break it down. Yes.
Okay, so hopefully everyone remembers what the job retention scheme is currently. So that's what the government will cover about 80% of a wage, up to a cap of, I think it's 2,500 a month. And then the rest can either be picked up by the employer or isn't if they are not in a position to do so. That scheme was due, first of all, to, at the very beginning, to only be alive, I think, for a couple of months. They've extended it. They were looking at trying to row back from the 80%. And then it does finish in October. But of course, rather than just finishing, as you said, and then there's nothing, and then that's why we have the potential of all of the redundancies for companies that haven't yet been able to restart successfully or are still struggling with cash flow. What the government has announced with the job retention bonus is for every employee that goes back full time, you can get, I think it's about £1,000. Every single one of those, provided, of course, that they stay employed through till next year, I think was in the announcement. Of course, is in the detail, and that's what we'll find out next. But it's really to try to, you know, support businesses to bring back employees as they roll out of and as the furlough scheme ends, and, you know, therefore then keep them so that we can keep people employed and not face devastating consequences of, you know, high unemployment.
Yeah, and that's right, because what it says applies to workers earning over 520 per month UK wide. As you say, 1,000 payment to employers for every furlough employed retained to the end of January 2021. So he's ambitious, looking forward somewhat as possible to try to help persons. Someone was saying, why not give the £1,000 to people in their hands to help them out? They got bills to pay and everything like that. Why is that not a good move, or is it a good suggestion by someone?
Well, I mean, I think that's probably then going back to the conversation you had earlier today. That might be a social move. So it seems great, doesn't it, to be like, oh yeah, of course, I want £1,000. Boom, I'm going to spend it, which could be short-term effective to the economy. But actually, let's look at this in a longer-term perspective.
Yes.
And, you know, the government wants to do what we should all be wanting to do, is bring our whole economy back and get the whole economy working. And that does require people to be in jobs, not get £1,000 in their pocket. This is to support employers employing. And, going through to Q1 of next year, where hopefully by then we're on a much more even keel, and so therefore sustainable businesses will actually be able to sustain themselves, and we haven't had that dip. And then without employees, you can't actually ramp up to the future. So it makes a lot more sense when you're looking at the overall welfare of the United Kingdom to actually inject that cash into businesses and not directly into our pocket, as much as we may like it.
And the thing also regarding that, many people are saying, well, this is a business bid. This is given to businesses, giving it to work to. Some are saying not to what should I say? Small companies. But I guess one can say that businesses is somewhat the engine that runs a country at this time. And therefore, by keeping these persons on board is a beneficial thing in the long term to somehow kickstart the government, kickstart the country rather, after this after this whole COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. And business is not about, just thinking of your huge, conglomerate, multinational. It can be an SME. It is an SME. It's, anyone in between. And all sorts of businesses have been able to put their employees on furlough when they have needed to over the last few months. And so therefore the benefit will hopefully from the benefit of the job retention bonus will be felt across the board as well.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the next one now? The next one is 6-month VAT cut for restaurant, hotels, and attractions.
Yeah, so this is part of the protecting jobs piece of the jobs announcements today. I think, there's no way in which we can hide that tourism and hospitality have been the hardest hit of sectors, because it still is the hardest hit of sectors. And normally I think this is the time of year where tourism is starting to be at its highest, where we all go and enjoy holidays, and other people come to the UK and spend money across the board. And so therefore, at this time, one of the things that the government knows it can do is to reduce VAT from 20% to 5% for many of the hospitality activities. Can obviously therefore then put that cash back in at this time. I mean, even if you just think about it in terms of, as people who work in offices, we've been at home. We may still be at home for a while, depending on your setup, which means that therefore you're not spending money at all those places you would usually go to for lunch. Or grab a breakfast or whatever, and so Greg's Bakery, for example, maybe could benefit from their sausage roll being no longer at 20% VAT, but 10% VAT.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So therefore, so when people looking at this now, the average bloke, the man on the Clapham bus upstairs, when he's seeing this now, what is he seeing? Is he seeing, well, this is for me, or this is not for me? It doesn't make sense. How does it translate down into the somewhat economy? Even one of those the VAT bit. How does that affect VAT cuts? How are they going to affect me? You know what I'm saying? How am I going to get that?
That's a good question, but isn't that always true with VAT? I mean, on one hand, you may see that what cost. Maths is not my strong suit, and I maybe should have done this beforehand. But what costs £1.20 now only costs £1.05p.
Yes.
You may see that. What you may, in this circumstance, I would also tell everybody is to think about the fact that difference from the £1.20 to the £1.05. Okay, maybe you put that in your pocket as a saving. But what that does is help sustain those businesses whilst foot flow and sales are down. So I think where we are at in the recovery cycle from COVID, we are still being very cautious. Obviously, we are still being told to, stay home as much as possible, maintain distance, don't make too many unnecessary activities, but at the same time, have a great time, go to the pub, obviously. It is the fact that just everything is down. So that, we all need to do what we can to support overall UK PLC.
And if we move on to the third one, which is stamp duty cut and green homes grant, I know of a couple of persons who are in the process of buying properties, and they were actually halfway in. I'm sure they may be pulling back out now and say, oh, let's start all over again. Threshold for stamp duty in residential property in England and Northern Ireland rise from 125,000 to 500,000 and applies from 8th of July until 31st of March 21. That's a good boost, isn't it?
That's a great boost. So to all those people who who are in the middle of a property transaction, they can still keep going. It means they don't then write a check to Inland Revenue for that amount of money, and instead they can spend that on furniture or something else to boost the economy, or they don't have to worry. And it can incentivize as well some of those people who were thinking about buying or selling to know that the government is doing what it can to sustain and buoy the market.
And looking at it further, what it says, almost 9 out of 10 transactions will be tax-free as a result. And this is what they're saying based on what they're looking at from. And ladies and gentlemen, if you think about it, it's 125,000 to 500,000. So therefore, that's where the threshold has gone up to. Expected to cost around 3.8 billion. Listen, I think now sometimes people are saying, hang on a second, where is that argument about austerity? Where is all this money coming from?
Austerity is over. Do you not remember? We don't talk about that anymore. I think that was one of the things that this government has really tried to do. It's, austerity was long and it was hard, and the consequences of it in some ways are still being felt now. So we're having to do things differently this time. And I think because the impact of COVID was so widespread, it doesn't matter almost which industry you're working in, where you are on the totem pole, everyone has been affected in some way. Life shut down almost, for quite a while. And so what that means is now, I guess, policymakers are looking at a different approach, and the austerity model just isn't going to work at this time. So we're going to try something different.
And I tell you what I find very interesting as well is that it is like the country has gone to a low level of zero. Let's use it for argument's sake. It's not zero. And therefore, we have nothing to lose but to boost and to build people and to encourage them by giving them monetary incentive companies. Because at the end of the day, why having young people and youths outside there maybe going to the dole and trying to get them to work? Give them some money, get them to work. Start to kickstart the economy. Up to 5,000 per household for projects to make homes more efficient in England. And what is that doing? Green home grant.
Well, I think, the green agenda has been and continues to be really important to this government. God, I sound like a government spokesman when I say that.
You're a Conservative Party member, isn't it?
I know I am. And
I'm sending some message to you, if anything.
Genuinely, the green agenda is really important at this time. And as the government is looking at what it can do, as it boosts the economy, it must have that focus as well. And so therefore, incentivizing infrastructure and, property building and all of the trade, but to do it in such a way which actually has a net benefit for the country overall. I mean, the science is out there, the reports are out there to say that we must do everything that we can to improve our environment. And that does mean whether it's, investment in the vehicles that we are driving, whether it's investments to ensure that heat, for example, isn't escaping from our houses. All of this is obviously of an overall net benefit to to us. And so therefore then when the government is saying, okay, how can we boost spending and how can we support jobs, it must also have a green and environmental element as well. And so that's what they're doing with that voucher system. So I think that's quite exciting.
And it is up to £10,000 per household, fully loaded. Sorry, I changed that word. It's fully funded.
It's fully loaded. It depends. So I think it's 5,000 in some instances and it's 10 in others.
Yes.
So basically, I think for every £2 you spend, the government will spend £1, I think is roughly.
Would you say then, taking on a sort of, what should I say, an objective hat at this time? Well, you're always objective in here, but an objective hat. Would you say the government actually, is this a form of compassionate conservatism or what? It doesn't fit the grain, as many people are saying.
I mean, I think that this is a truly one nation government looking at what it can do to support the nation overall. There are many things that many of us may question and do want to do differently. But I think particularly with the Chancellor's statement today, it's quite clear that they're trying to boost across the board.
Yes.
So it's not targeted at, can we be rude about a certain group, like bankers, for example? Sorry if any of them.
Yeah.
But you know how it's kind of sometimes seen as like taking the last significant hit we had. It was like, oh, it was all the bankers' fault, but we bailed out the bankers was one of the arguments. This is quite clearly, targeting those sectors that have been hit the hardest and continue to be hit the hardest, hospitality and tourism, on top of just a general package for employment, both existing with protecting jobs and also supporting jobs and also with creating new ones. And, that particular emphasis on the Kickstart scheme for young people, I think has got to also be good. I know that there will be those, particularly on the left, who are already complaining, well, it's only, I think 25 hours a week or minimum wage or whatever it is. At the end of the day, this is a kickstart. This is to really help them get the skills, get the experience on their CVs that they need, which is totally government supported. I mean, I've got to say, as a conservative, sometimes I'll be like, what do you mean totally government supported? But actually, if this is having a longer term benefit, which means that then we are investing today for the future, we're investing in the youth today,
yes,
for the future, and they're the ones who are going to, actually help pay for our pensions, let's be honest, when they're working and we're not, then that's actually a massive help and support. And it's not, not targeted at the people who really need it, irrespective of where they come from.
Right. So therefore, what we're talking about is kickstarting the government, get people active back into work. And also one of the things that I've been thinking about is that people should not, well, this is just me saying it, being to the fact that this chancellor seemed to be very creative and creating these new opportunities from the furlough. You can see what is happening. I think he has been on the right side of everything at this moment. When everything is happening with science, he comes in and says, well, I'm just here to give you some money. And I'm gone. I'm just chilling. You know what I mean? I'm the money guy. And everybody says, oh, we like seeing the chancellor. He always come and give us some. He's even a restaurant, Wagamama today. He was there dishing out food, man. He was there being waiter. This guy's all over the place,
I've got to hand it to Rishi Sunak and his team. They are doing a very, very good job. I mean, I've got to say, he obviously could be a GQ model and they are using that to their advantage. So well done them, as well as, having policies that actually are supporting us as a country at this time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you again for coming on to the show here, the late one with Siobhan Aaron. And what we're talking about is the new economic summer statement by the Chancellor, talking about the different boost the cash incentives that he's using to get the economy back going. Siobhan is a Global Customs Trade Counsel, Conservative Party member, and spare time political analyst. Even though she says spare time, but I think she breathed it. But anyway, that's me just saying that. Please also share the video as you see. That would be great, as much as possible. But I want to direct you to a question which just came in from Akeisha Allen, and it says, nothing in there for the working class.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say about that?
No, I would say that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. The job retention bonus obviously is not sector specific, it's not job specific, it's not income specific. So therefore, that is completely applicable to everybody. You know, I would say that those who could benefit the most probably from the youth kickstart scheme, from the additional resources being put into DWP and its services, to skills and apprenticeships. I mean, you're talking about, I think it's all over, it's like 3.5 billion, so 3.5 billion in that side. I think it will be quite obvious who will be able to get the most from that. Also, hospitality and tourism, you know, one of the issues is that there's a lot of lower paid people in that sector.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, in order to support that sector, the government is taking action. Now, whether or not you like it, whether or not you think it goes far enough, the simple fact is that quite clearly is targeted at a particular sector, which quite clearly does have a lot of people working in that at the lower brackets of income. So therefore, I would argue that there is quite a lot in there for the working class as well as across the whole of the United Kingdom.
And I think along the way, what we're going to be doing is there's more which is there, which we haven't touched on as yet. But let me just, since I'm in the role now, and of course, Keisha can always come back with that point there. But if I go further, what is it that I had up there? I had something up there a while ago on the screen. It was talking about the discount on restaurant meals and all.
Oh, your favorites.
Yeah, you like that one, or me like that one?
I'm not so bothered about that one personally. Sorry, but I know you are.
Yeah, well, I can go to. When I heard that today, I was excited about that one, and I'm saying it said, "Eat out to help out." All it is catchphrase: stay alert, control the virus, save lives. At first, it was like, "What's that?" So everybody started to say, "Stay alert." I can see the virus. Control it. Yes, stay alert. You know, go to work. Don't go to work. And there's this video going around. Go to work if you can go to work. I'm sorry, but it was for the viewers. So now what we have is eat out to help out. 50% discount for every diner, up to £10 a head, from Monday to Wednesday throughout August. So therefore, I can just imagine what's going to happen. As long as people, of course, and I must emphasize, they still need to stay alert, control the virus, and save lives, because we've got to make sure these social distance still apply.
Yeah. And we still have to protect the NHS. I think that was the other one.
Yes. So what it does, it covers food, non-alcoholic drinks only. So therefore, as someone said, the police recently said, it is difficult to social distance when they're drunk. You know, with the recent after July the 4th, applies at participating restaurants, pubs, and cafes. So I guess it is something which is going to be linked to key companies or so.
Yeah, I think they're going to set up a website or something like that.
Okay.
So that businesses can register.
Yes. Yeah. And let me see what I have here.
Yes, we got. And you've got to sit. It is a sit-down meal, Monday to Wednesday. I mean, I think that's great, Sylbourne, for you. And you're such a romantic. So take your wife out all through August.
Well. I think the children will want to say they want to be a part of the process as well. You know what I'm saying? Even though they're going to end up going back home and say they're not fussy about that food or something like that. You know, what they should do is actually say wherever in the world and send it to Jamaica to go to Otrius to have meal. I think Rishi can do that. He's you know. So ladies and gentlemen, so the Chancellor give diners 50% off on eating out, and therefore it is for you to take advantage of that. That is a way to kickstart the government by eat out to help out, and that's it. So the next one now is the support for young workers, and this is very important, Siobhan. If you can elaborate on that one there. Yeah.
So we've talked about this a lot, actually. So overall, there's 1.6 billion will be invested in scaling up employment support, with the additional 2% directly for the what's called the Kickstart scheme.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail, but I'm sure there'll be yet more to come from that. But I think, really the idea is for, I think it's 16 to 25, is it?
Yes.
Forgive me, I've lost my notes on that section.
I've got it here, yeah.
But anyway, carry on.
101 million to fund studies for 18 to 19-year-old. Is that it? In England, unable to work?
No, it's not that one.
Yeah. Okay, yes. 2 billion fund to pay for 6-month work placement for 16 to 24-year-olds on universal credit. Is that the one?
That's the one. Where your notes and mine are possibly not the same.
Yeah.
You didn't ask. You didn't tell me we're going into this level of detail.
Well. I mean, I've got it here. I mean, for persons, the payments cover minimum wage for 25 hours per week plus national insurance, pension contribution for Great Britain, 1,000 grand per trainee for employers who take on new trainees aged 16 to 24 in England, aiming to triple trainee numbers, 2,000 grand for employers per apprentice under 25 hired, 1,500 for those over 25 for 6 months starting 1st of August, doubling the number of work coaches at job centers. So therefore, they're even tapping into work coaches as well.
Oh yeah, this is the biggest investment into what's called DWP, the Department of Work and Pension, and their services for, I don't know, a really long time. I think that this is, in unprecedented times, this is a significant and unprecedented measure. And they are looking at boosting the entire kind of, let's call it, bedrock of employment, so through apprenticeships, through support schemes, through skills upgrading, and through what DWP services can offer, including like what you can have at the job centre. So in that way, again, when we were talking about how the government is choosing to spend money and whether or not it's a socialist way of choosing to spend money, it's quite clearly it isn't. This is a short-term spend, but a long-term investment in the future of the United Kingdom, and so in that way, I think that that's very targeted and very sensible, and hopefully that will bear fruit.
Yeah, and if I go further on the list, it talks about 150 million extra for the flexible support fund will provide help for job seekers in Great Britain. I think that is helpful. 101 million to fund studies for 18 to 9-year-olds in England unable to find work. So therefore, they are keeping to get themselves educated along the way. It seems like it is wanting to get everybody really off their butt to a certain extent. 95 million to
jobs. It's all jobs. Every single bit of the announcement goes back to supporting jobs, protecting jobs, and creating jobs.
Yes. I noticed, just to acknowledge what Keisha is saying, 50% off is nothing new. Restaurants do that anyway. 2 for 1. Hi, Imari. Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, I guess maybe they get another 50% off. Maybe there should be a thing in the scheme that if you're giving 50% off already, you get 50% off of that 50%. So therefore, you're paying 25%. I don't know. I'm not helping Rishi with this thing, you know. And went further by saying coaches as in employment advisors, we're coaches. So you know, I think what we're seeing here, Siobhan, is a very, from my perspective, a very creative, which seemed to be thought through. You know, job finding. Yeah, go on. Sorry. Yeah.
I know. I was going to say that it's quite clear from, you know, even the emergency measures that were taken back in March, April, that this Chancellor has used his experiences in the private sector well, and is really thinking through how you can approach, you know, the impact of coronavirus on the UK, and is quite clearly focused on the results. And I think, and that's something that's so important, is it's not just a question of opening the checkbook, but you know, how can you ensure that that's actually targeted and, you know, will bear fruit. And so yeah, it is creative, but also I think it's very much reflective of not just looking at the immediate term, but also looking at the longer term, you know, state of the UK, including, you know, investing in young people and in infrastructure and the environment, as in, you know, taking the UK forward and protecting it in the years to come.
Yeah. Well, we touched on this point already, and I also said what Keisha said. Still, I don't think that Rishi has gone far enough, and I think we touched on that point already to say that things have got to be done in phase. You know, I mean, if you can look at that question or that statement there by Keisha, it says, "Still, I don't think Rishi has gone far enough." Has he gone far enough, or hasn't got far enough? You know?
I mean, I'm fiscally conservative, so for me, when you're talking about we've already spent 180 billion.
Yes.
You know, this is a package of 30 billion. I'm quite sure between now and the autumn statement, which has been confirmed, that there may be other things. You know, one of the issues has been in this summer package is that it hasn't actually paid any particular attention to key manufacturing industries like aerospace, aviation, and the automotive sector. So, you know, those sectors are still pushing for additional support in one way or another. And so I'm sure that there'll be more, but we're starting to get to a point where I have to say, as I said, I'm not very good with maths. You know, I'm good enough for myself, but not in that kind of big picture of government spending. You're talking about 100 and something here, 30 something here, and you're like, okay, fine, but billions. SYLBOURNE, what does that mean? You know, and ultimately, we all have to pay it back. We, people, will be paying for it. And so there comes to a point where you can't just keep leveraging, because then ultimately you're leveraging the future and you know, people's children's futures. And so there comes to a point where we just can't do it.
Interesting what you said. There's got to be a payback. The pipers are going to come for his payment. Northern Rock and everything, all the money that came back, went out, they're coming back. They're coming back for it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I know as individuals, we may look and say, how is this helping me? And may question that. But even in terms of things like, you know, the infrastructure announcements they've made, the decarbonisation, I mean, that's all, you know, the green element there that you want to raise, which we talked about before.
Yes.
You know, all of that investment, you may think, I think, for example, I live in a flat. And so I was like, well, I can't go and, you know, spend money on whatever it is, new cavity insulation or what have you. So this doesn't apply to me. But I then have to look at it and say, well, actually, it will apply to someone else and they can benefit from that, and they can therefore, have a longer term investment. At the same time, there's jobs that are still being created or being provided for. So that's the whole cycle. And that's how we have to look at it. But we also must be mindful that there is only so much the government can do, because otherwise they are leveraging our futures.
And I must say, when you think about different countries in the world which are maybe going through this and maybe not getting this level of stimulus, I believe the UK has been leading the way with this. Unfortunately, UK is also leading the way with, but not leading the way with the amount of debt. God, rest in peace, those persons who have passed away by virtue of COVID. But if I'm talking about like even Caribbean countries, well, Jamaica is not so bad because the debt has not been so bad. But at the same time, it was locked down. The tourism business in Jamaica was completely wiped to a certain extent. Lots of people, and the government was trying to do something, but they're not doing anything in comparison to what is happening in the UK. So I think, rightly as you said, and for persons to understand that this is a way how the government is actually trying to work with the country in order to kickstart, because it has been devastating. And in order to keep people's job by paying for them, that was a big thing, man. That was heavy duty, Siobhan, and if we look at the final one here, which is the infrastructure and decarbonization, talked about 1 billion of grants to public sector bodies to improve energy efficiency, 50 million towards the social housing decarbonization fund, aim to improve the energy efficiency of socially rented homes. And the Chancellor also gave further details of 5.6 billion package of infrastructure measures previously announced by the Prime Minister on 3rd of June, includes measures for hospitals, school building, transport, and housing. I mean, how far can you go?
I think that's a very comprehensive package, isn't it? So, and again, it's looking at both the immediate term and the future, and all of these policy proposals will actually, hopefully, kind of pay for themselves in the longer term. And so, by injecting money back into the exchequer, and then also by supporting our carbon emission cuts that we have pledged to do, and creating a sustainable environment going forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the questions I can see that's going to come up here is, well, we've talked about, is the Conservatives implementing socialist policies? I don't think so.
It's very interesting what he said. Implementing socialist policies, is the government experiencing an identity crisis? Is it? I think the question is the money being given to people in their pocket to go and spend? I think that's a big question again. There's a distinction, isn't it?
There's a massive distinction. You're right. It's not about just dropping, an amount of money into everybody's hands. This is designed to boost the economy in a sustained way by protecting, creating, and supporting jobs. Which means that the whole engine keeps moving. This isn't a one-time hit, which then you can decide to put as an individual. You can put it under your mattress or go, spend it on the national lottery or whatever. This is actually part of, putting coal into the engine of the UK PLC. And so in that way, I think that's very clearly not socialist policies, and therefore they're not having an identity crisis and thinking that they will jump to the left.
Why did Sonic not cut income tax? Just dropping some questions there. Why did not cut? That's the thing. Why didn't they cut NIS? Why did not cut income tax? Because you got to pay it back. You got to pay it back, innit?
That's a tough one, isn't it? And again, I don't know this is outside of my personal knowledge. This is just me kind of asking an open question. I don't know if dropping income tax actually protects jobs or boosts jobs. I know obviously an employer pays a percentage of income tax, as does the employee, but I'm not sure if that's really doing anything. Because if you talk about like the ending of job retention scheme, for example, it could be that employers look and say, do we actually need these 5 positions to return. So whereas by the job retention scheme and then going into the job retention bonus, it's by keeping those 5 positions,
yes,
you get that investment into your company in order to keep going. So I'm not sure if income tax, and I'm sure they must have looked at it, and income tax wouldn't be able to produce the same results that they are trying to achieve here.
Miguel, I hope that is helpful for yourself. I'm going to release Siobhan very shortly now. So therefore, I believe the questions that I ask people out there, and if you're listening to this, if you can come back and say, is it a good policies? Do you think you'll benefit or not? And what are the reasons you think? Or what do you think that the Chancellor should have done more? Should he have given more, or should he, because at the end of the day, think about this, as Siobhan said, not that she's speaking on behalf of the government, but they say somehow somebody's got to pay these things back, you know? so therefore, that's the thing. Keisha is saying the government don't trust people to make use of money themselves. I don't mind a stimulus check. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Siobhan, any last word, any roundup, if anything?
I would just say that I think that whilst I am amazed by how much Rishi Sunak continues to spend,
yes,
as a fiscal conservative, I am also glad to see that across the board there is support being given for many different industries, for many different people. I'm more interested in why the government aren't doing things like letting spas and salons reopen when you can go to a pub. I think that that's really important. And now it is about really trying to get all elements of our economy back up and running. It's going to be slow, it's going to be tough, and it's going to be painful. But I think if we keep on this journey, as the Chancellor has done in the first 2 stages, of everybody kind of doing it together, I think hopefully when we come to this time next year, if we're doing a review of a summer statement from the Chancellor next year, we can actually say, oh yes, it was horrible and it was tough, but actually we have come through it together and we will be in a better position.
And one more thing I was just thinking about in regards to the restaurant, because in order for you to go to your restaurant as well to eat food, you got to get your hair done. You got to get your clothes done, isn't it? So therefore, there's a lot of little ways, kickback effect, whereby it's going to benefit, because the hair salons are now open, isn't it?
Hair salons are open, but I can't get a mani, I can't get a pedi.
Okay.
So you can't go, and if you want a facial, you can't get any of those things done, which are actually, all of those are quite controlled environments and secure. So that's my plea to government, is they should be doing that. And also because as a woman, the beauty industry employs a lot of women, a lot of the businesses are owned by women, and that's where I think that they really need to focus and get on with, so that we can all go to restaurants, enjoy our 50% off Monday to Wednesday, and look fabulous doing it.
And as what Keisha said, well, the 50% has always been there now. So I said, okay, we're just going to give 50% off the 50%, and you get 25%.
I'm in. Now I'm in.
But listen, I just put this one to you before. I'm joined by Instagram, that is, it's up to you. I tend to always jump on Instagram after and just do a quick review, like about 15 minutes. If you want to do that, Siobhan, it'd be great. If you want to do that after we finish, you can go over there. I'm just gonna stay there for about 10 minutes or so and just review some of what we discussed. If you come over, it'd be great. Not going to tie you down, I'm trying to say, Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. And Miguel, I see your statement. Sunak should have focused on incentivizing productivity rather than splashing cash. Business will still need policies that makes the companies competitive. Perhaps he's a closet socialist. Well, we've been hearing that. I think the good thing about it is that lots of people are talking, and I'm sure they are listening and making themselves a bit even more creative. So it's good that the views are coming true. And tomorrow night I'll have the three musketeers, myself, Keisha Kamer, and also Dr. David Burton, ophthalmologist, will give me updates as to COVID, where we'll sort of go into a bit depth and look at some of the top stories of the week as well, and just have a review at 9 o'clock. So you can see the Three Musketeers and myself, where we're going to have a little fun on that. And of course, we'll be touching on this because there may be more that comes out of this. And they've got to pull Siobhan from somewhere and say, listen, we need you back to follow up, because they're saying what you said was blah, blah, blah.
It might be by tomorrow. There might be more detail tomorrow.
Might be more details. And we're going to talk another time about the racism issue and all those sort of things, but we'll touch that another time. So I want to thank you so much, Siobhan. And if anything, you can join me on Instagram. All right, I'm there. Right. Thank you. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for that, and it was great having you. And thanks so much for Siobhan, who came on, and as we looked over at the policies of the government, the new raft of measures which is implemented by the Chancellor, and somehow to boost and to kickstart the economy as much as possible. I think, and it is correct that there are different views and different comments, and I've seen it all day. I'm in discussion with different persons, but I think one of the most fundamental thing is that it is happening. Something is happening. They're not sitting on their laurels, and you got to give the government kudos at the same time for trying their best to somehow, because COVID, when he came in like a thief in the night. You know what I'm saying? Ripped off people, messed up people. You know, people lose their jobs, people locked in, isolation, mental health issues, so many raft of things. So I think at this time, while people may not agree with all of the different policies and all of the different cash incentive, is to somehow come together. I believe that there's a need for a rallying together at this time to really go forth as much as possible. This government is going to be here for the next 4 or 5 years, if all being well. So therefore, we've got to work together at this time, irrespective of political party perspective as well, because we've got to go forward. So as I said, thank you very much, Miguel, Kema, Keisha, and all the persons who joined, and Nicholas Foster. Hey, nice seeing you, buddy. And see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. where we go into more depths with the Dream Team, Kema, Keisha, and Dr. David Burton, as we explore more about some of the top news of the week. So many things, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. Only way you know, by coming tomorrow. Okay? God bless you. Peace out. Bye-bye.